Before we get started, I want to show you the goal of this cup, the mentality and the logic behind it. So if you look over here, you can see I have a layer group and then my background image. So my background image is nothing more than just gray with a small gradient at the bottom to kind of add a little bit of effect. And then the top one, the layer group here, is the actual coffee cup itself. Inside of that group, you have the shadow layer, which creates the shadow underneath, and then three more layers that break down the different elements of the cup. You have the cup body, the grip, and the actual lid. And then inside of those groups, inside of the cup group, you'll notice that I have a bunch of layers here. As you can see, all of these layers are just shading layers. They just shade different aspects of the image. And then your bottommost image is the actual color itself. So again, if I hide all of these layers, all the shading layers, you can see this is nothing but a plain color. Even if we turn off the layer mask, you can even see it's just a single color with a layer mask applied, and then a bunch of layers with layer modes that add all of the shading and all of the texture to the cup. Now the reason why this is important is because if you do it this way, again, it's all about control. So let's click on this layer and let's click colors, hue saturation, and from here we can easily change the color of our cup, and all of that shading information stays the same. We can change the saturation, change the lightness, and without really doing too much at all, we can change the color of this cup to whatever we want it to be. And the same goes for the grip and the lid. If you look at the grip, you can see again it's a series of layers. If I turn off all these layer modes, the grip is just a single color. But if I turn all these back on, you can see all of those add all of that shading and all of that styling. So once you create all of those layer modes with all the styling and all the shading, you can change the colors on these cups until you get it to a color scheme that you really like. So again, hue saturation, and I can completely manipulate my cup. And then last but not least, you have the lid, and once again it's the same exact thing. You have a series of layers that shade various elements of the lid, and when you put them together they create the final image. And then again, colors, hue saturation. If you adjust the color of the lid, you can change the color. So I just wanted to go over like I said, a little bit of the logic behind it, and I wanted to give you a bit of an overview and overall understanding on how this works and why I end up using dozens and dozens of layers for a coffee cup. So I hope that makes sense. Now let's go ahead and get started. Before we get started on this, we're going to want to put a guide in the middle so that we have a reference point to represent the center of the cup. So to do that, we're going to click Image, Guides, New Guide by Percent, set it to vertical, and the position in percent is 50. Hit OK, and what will happen is it'll put a vertical guide 50% inside of our canvas, which is the middle. So now what we need to do is we need to start building what I call a wireframe of the cup. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to create a series of paths that will represent the edges of the cup. And once we do that, we can from there build our cup. So to get started, we're going to make sure you have a paths dialog up, and if you don't have one already, just click Windows, Dockable Dialogs, Paths, and that will add it somewhere in your interface. And then we're going to click on the Ellipse Select tool, and we're going to draw an ellipse at the bottom of the canvas to represent the bottom of the cup. So go ahead and make sure that the crosshair on your ellipse is snapping onto the center of the guide, and then just kind of adjust it until you have what you think the bottom of the cup should look like. Maybe I'll adjust mine up a little bit. maybe not that much, right about there maybe. And then just kind of squeeze these in a little bit. And I'm just going to continue to tweak this until I'm pretty happy with how it looks. That looks pretty good. Okay, so now, as you can see, if you look at this ellipse, the bottom half of this is the only part that's actually going to be visible in our image. The top half won't be. But this would represent, this area up here would represent the back half of the cup, or the back of the cup. This represents the left edge, the right edge, and the front edge right here. And, you know, specifically the bottom edge. So now we're going to click Image, or I'm sorry, we're actually just going to click right here on Selection to Path. And what that'll do is that will turn our selection into a path. So click Select None, and you'll be able to see what I mean. Turn the selection on, and there you can see we now have a path created from that selection. If you zoom in, you'll notice that no matter how much you zoom in onto this path, the width of that line doesn't change. That's because this is considered vector data. And what that means is instead of it being a collection of pixels, it's just a collection of points. And what this means to us is we can scale this up, scale it down, do whatever we want to it, and it will not lose any quality at all. So that's really handy to know. You know, if you realize later on that you want to make this entire thing bigger, you can make the whole thing bigger and it will have no effect on your quality until you start actually creating the cup. Next up, we're going to draw the top ring to represent the top of the cup. So to do that, we're just going to click on the Ellipse Select tool, and we're just going to drag excuse me, at the top to create another ellipse, and drag it over so that it's on center, and then just adjust the size until we get something that we like. And then whenever we're done, just click on the Selection to Path to create the path. Now I don't like this. I think it's a little bit too tall, so we're going to go ahead and click on the Scale tool, and we're going to just adjust this until we get it to the right size. And just keep tweaking it until you find something that you like. Okay, so after some tweaking, I managed to end up with this path. So I hope that makes sense. I hope you guys understand what happened there. I just clicked on the Scale tool, and I just scaled it around until I found what I liked, and then I hit Scale. And then I just moved my path to make sure that it's on center. And there we go. The reason why I didn't play it is because I'm sure you guys don't want to sit there and watch me tweak this for an hour. Just kind of mess around with it and adjust it until you find, you know, that it looks pretty good. And for reference, a good way to be able to check your work, if you will, is to go over to your layers, click on your background, click on the brush tool, and then click with the brush tool, and then hold in Shift, and we're going to click over here like this. And what we're doing is we're basically creating a quick look at the shape of our cup. And that definitely looks like a cup. I mean, this being your top ring and this being your bottom ring, if you imagine this as a glass cup right now, you can see that it would look pretty good. So I'm happy with that. If you do that and you're not happy with it, just go ahead and go over to your Path tool, click on Scale, and just keep on adjusting and tweaking both the bottom and top until you find something that you like. Okay, from there we're going to go ahead and build the lid. Okay, so I continued to tweak my path because, again, I still wasn't quite happy with it. I thought the top looked a little bit too wide, so I just clicked on the Scale tool and I made it a little bit thinner. So now mine looks kind of like this. So again, I clicked on the brush tool, I'm on my background layer, and I'm just going to the sides and I'm drawing in two imaginary lines. There, I think that looks a little better. Okay, so now we're going to start drawing the lid. What's interesting about the lid is it's basically the same exact ring. It's going to be on the same exact plane as this one. The only difference is it's going to be wider. So we're going to just duplicate this path, and we are going to then click on the scale tool, and we're going to make the lid ring a little bit wider. And then hit the scale tool. And just go ahead and rename that as the maybe bottom lid ring. And I named this one wrong. Let's name it the top cup ring. There we go. So now we have the top cup ring, the bottom cup ring, and the bottom lid ring. And then from there, just go ahead and tweak your bottom lid ring until you're happy with it. Alright, just like that. And I went ahead and actually made my my ring just a little bit taller and a little bit not quite so wide. I just tweaked it just a hair. So now I have my large lid ring. I'm sorry, not the large, the bottom. Keep messing up my names. So the bottom, top, and the bottom. So now from there we're going to create the top lid ring to represent the rest of our lid. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click on my bottom lid ring, and I'm going to click duplicate path, and I'm going to actually name it top lid ring. And then I'm going to click on the scale tool, and I'm going to just drag up from the bottom just to make it a little bit taller, and then scale it inward to make it a little less wide. Just adjust that as you see fit, and then hit scale. So all I did there was, instead of creating a new ellipse with the ellipse select tool and turning it to a path, I just duplicated an existing path and then used the scale tool to kind of stretch it in place. So go ahead and tweak it from there, and I ended up tweaking mine to look kind of like this. So now, as you can see, again, if you wanted to create a reference, you can go back to your background layer, and you could click here and then click here, and this would create the edges of your cup. And then you can click here and here to kind of give yourself a rough idea on how your cup would look. Now if you look, it looks like my path isn't on center, just looking at that test. So let's go back over to our top lid ring and check to make sure it's centered. Oh, I guess it is centered. Maybe it was just in my head. Okay, so in this case you could click here and here, and this would give you an idea as to how your cup would be shaped. Yeah, I guess it is on center. Now from there, I want to create some detail inside of this cup. So I kind of want to have this create another ridge inside of this exact ring, and then make it look like it goes back down. So to do that, we need to create a couple more rings. We need to create one more to represent the inside ring, and then we need to create another one to represent the bottom of the inside ring. So first off, we're going to create the inside of this top ring. To do that, we'll go over to our top lid ring again, right click on it and click duplicate path, and we're going to name this top inner lid ring. And then we'll click on the scale tool, scale it in, and just grab the sides, pull it in a little bit, and then pull the top down and the bottom up. It gets a little confusing sometimes because you've got a lot of rings you're looking at. Just remember, the pink one represents the outer ring right now, and that's why we chose to duplicate that. And then this gray line represents what our final ring will look like, and we want to make sure it looks flat. So scale it, and then maybe scale it up on this end a little. We'll try that for now and see how it looks. Okay, so now right now it looks like it's lower than the actual original ring. So we're going to click on the move tool and we're going to move it up, and then we're going to move it back down a little. I'm holding in control to keep it straight. There we go. That looks pretty good. So now we have another ring that represents the inner ring. And go ahead and just tweak that. Like right now, just looking at it, I can tell it's not wide enough, or it's too wide for that matter. So we need to scale it to make it a little smaller. So again, just click on your scale tool and just make it a little less wide, and continue to tweak it until you're happy with it. So after some tweaking, I ended up with this. So now that represents the inside ring of the lid. Next up, we're going to create another path that is down a little bit and a little bit smaller again to kind of make it look like it's tapering down into a smaller ring. So to do that, we're just going to duplicate our top inner lid ring again, and we're going to scale it down until we get it to the size that we want. So we're going to scale it so it moves down, and then just make it a little less wide, kind of like that, and hit scale. Now this is where it gets a little bit confusing, because what you have is from here where these two intersect to here, this is the visible area. That represents our bevel. So I think that actually looks pretty good. I'm gonna compare and take a look at the original just to make sure it looks as good as I think it does, and tweak accordingly. Alright, so go ahead and rename your path to bottom inner lid ring, and as you can see, I tweaked it a little bit. I didn't make the bevel quite so tall. I made it a little bit shorter. So now if you zoom out, we have ourselves quite a complex series of rings. But don't worry, it'll all make sense in a little bit. From there, we're going to go ahead and create the grip. On second thought, we'll actually create the grip after we create our lines on the sides here, because we want to be able to use those for reference on how big our grip ring needs to be. So we now have enough to be able to start building our cup. To do that, we're going to actually start creating some paths based on what we have here. So first off, we want to actually create the cup shape itself without the rest of this stuff. So let's go ahead and hide all of the lid layers. So now we only have the top ring and the bottom ring. Right click on this path and click Path to Selection, and then right click on the top ring and click Add to Selection. And then go over to your lasso or your free select tool, and we're going to go back over to our canvas and just zoom in, way in, and see this point where it gets vertical and it's starting to turn over. That represents the final point on the end of our curve, our path. So click right there, and what we're going to do is we're going to basically change our selection so that we actually have something to be able to create a path from. And we're just clicking on all of these nodes, creating all these nodes on all of these tangent points on the edges of the cup. And now this is important. Before you make that final click to close this, you need to make sure that you click on Add to Current Selection, and then click there to close it. And I don't know why that didn't do what I thought it was going to do, but that's okay. We'll right click on this and click Add to Selection, and then click Add to Selection there. And now it created the actual shape of our cup. So from there, we now have, as you can see, the outline of our cup, including our vertical lines that represent the side edges. So from there, we're going to click on Selection to Path, and what happens, click Select None, is we now have another path right here that we're going to call Cup Shape. And that path was made from the top cup ring and the bottom cup ring. So together, they created everything that we need to be able to make our cup. Just for some organizational sake, I'm going to move the cup shape up and then leave the top and bottom ring underneath of it. And I'm going to do the same thing with the lid. That way I can kind of see some kind of hierarchy in between them. So from there, I'm going to right click on my top cup ring and click Duplicate Path, and we're going to move it up one so it's outside of the cup shape hierarchy. And we're going to actually create the grip. So we're going to call this path, the top grip ring. And we're going to click on our scale tool and scale the top grip ring down. And actually, that won't do what we want it to do, so let's delete that path, and instead let's use the bottom cup ring and scale it up. So duplicate this path. There it is. Move it up above the cup shape so that you have some organization. And then click on the scale tool and scale that one up. There we go. And we'll go ahead and create our top one. Just kind of make it a little bit wider. Move it on center, see how it looks. And then just continue to tweak it until you're happy with the final result. Hit scale, rename it to top grip ring, and there we go. So continue to tweak that until you're happy with it, and we'll go from there. Alright, so I ended up moving mine a little bit further up on the cup, and I'm going to now add the bottom cup ring. So to do that, we're just going to right click on our top cup ring and click duplicate path, and from there we're going to scale it down. So click on the scale tool, click over here, and then just drag down. And you see the problem is as we scale down it's getting thinner, when in reality as we scale down it should be getting bigger, which means that we can't actually use the top ring. We could, but it's probably going to be a little bit easier to actually start with the bottom cup ring. So let's go ahead and duplicate the bottom cup ring, rename it to bottom grip ring, and then scale it up. And you'll notice it gets smaller as it gets higher, which is what it should do. And then increase the width. And this is where things get a little bit weird, because the width of your grip ring needs to be exactly the same as the width of it has to be, the edge would want to be the same angle as the edge of your cup so that it looks right. And as you can see, that's clearly not the case right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to right click on my cup shape and click duplicate path. Oops, not delete, duplicate. And this is only temporary, this is just for reference, and I'm going to actually move that duplicated path straight over until its edge is tangent to the top of my cup. That's pretty close. And then from there I will click on the bottom grip ring, and I'm going to click on the scale tool, and I'm going to scale this over until it hits right onto that edge. And then all I have to do to make sure it's on center is scale this back over until the center of this is in line with my guide. And that will make sure that it's the same on both sides, and hit scale. Now I can delete that copy of my cup shape and have confidence that whenever I end up making my lines for this, that they're going to look correct. But now looking at it, I think my grip's a little bit too short, so I'm going to adjust it until I'm happy with it. But basically that's the process that's used to be able to create the bottom lid ring, or grip ring. Yeah, the bottom grip ring. So now we're going to create the inner ring that will represent what actually touches the cup. So you know there's a lip right here on the top of our grip, and it has two rings. It has one ring on the outside and then one ring that runs along the actual cup. So to create that, we're going to right click on our top grip ring and click duplicate path, and then click on the scale tool and just scale it down until both sides are right on the outer edge of our cup, like that. And then hit scale, and there we go. From there we're going to tweak it just a little bit, make it a little bit shorter on both sides. but not a lot, just a small amount, and then maybe a little more than that. Something like that, and then hit scale. Now look, I pushed mine too far down, so let's grab it and move it back up until it looks like it's in line. Sometimes it's easier to drag it way out of the way and then holding control and bring it back down. There we go. Okay, so now we have what we're going to call the top inner grip ring. Now we have everything that we need to be able to make our grip. So let's hide our cup shape layers and show nothing but the grip rings. And then we're going to right click on our bottom and click Path to Selection, and then right click on the top and click Add to Selection. But we don't want what's in the center of this ring because that already exists. So after we create the rest of our shape, we're going to actually subtract that from the selection. So click on the free select tool, create the rest of your shape by clicking on the outer edges. This is the same process as what we did with the cup itself, but there's an extra step at the end. So just go all the way around, click on all four parts, and then make sure you're on Add to Selection and click. Now all we have to do is get rid of the inner grip ring area. So right click on that and click Subtract from Selection. And what happens is it creates the actual ring detail at the top. But in truth, we actually want, well, yeah, I guess that works. We'll work with that. So then click on Selection to Path, and what we'll get is this shape. That's from all of our other paths, and we'll call this the grip shape. So now we have our grip shape and a cup shape that's built off of a series of our rings. So next up, we're going to build the lid. So for simplicity's sake, we're going to hide the grip shape and the cup shape and then just turn on nothing but our lid rings. Now, to create the actual lid, we're going to need a series of layers, just like what we did earlier. Or I'm sorry, we're going to need a series of selections like what we did earlier. So we're going to start, we're going to create the basic shape, and then we're going to create the indented shape separately. So we're going to just hide these because we're just going to start with creating these two, the top lid ring and the bottom lid ring. So right click, Path to Selection, right click again, Add to Selection, and then just click on the lasso tool, free select tool, and click in those two spots. There we go, and you'll notice that this time it wasn't perfectly along the edge because we're just trying to create tangent lines, not necessarily, so in this case, since everything is on an angle, it kind of messes that up. So make sure you click on Add to Selection and then click, and that will create the inside area of your selection. And we'll go ahead and convert that to a path and then name that cup shape. We'll name it outer cup shape. And that's made from the top and bottom lid ring. And then from there, we will create the inner lid shape. So we'll leave the outer cup shape turned on so we can kind of have reference here. Now this time, we need one thing. We actually just need this area right in here. And that's because that's the only part that's visible. So to do that, we're going to right click on our top inner ring and click Path to Selection, and then we're going to right click on the bottom inner ring and click Subtract from Selection. So now all we have is that area selected. Then just right click and click, well, you can do that, or you can just click on Selection to Path down here. Selection to Path, and then we'll name that inner lid shape. But we're going to need one more shape as well inside of here. We're also going to need that area that's visible at the bottom. So to get that, we're going to right click on our bottom lid ring and click Path to Selection. And for simplicity's sake, I'm going to hide the inner and outer cup shape. And then we're going to also need to take the top inner lid ring and we're going to do something called an intersect, where what it does is it only selects the pixels that are intersecting between the both of them. So if we right click on this, on the top inner lid ring, and click Intersect with Selection, it's going to do nothing but select the difference between the two. Now we'll convert that to a path, and we will name that inner lid bottom shape, and move that up. So now we have most all of the paths that we'll need. We have the inner lid, well, we'll start from the bottom. We have the cup shape. We now have the shape of the grip. We have the outer, not the cup, outer lid shape. Outer lid shape. The inner lid shape and the inner lid bottom shape. So with all of these, and with the help of a couple of the rings throughout this lesson, we're going to be able to build our entire cup. So with the top grip ring, and that you can, looking at it, you can actually really see the finished cup in its entirety. So we'll go ahead and save our work if you haven't already. And from here on, we're going to start building our image from all of the paths that we've created. Alright, so what we're going to do is create a series of layers and start organizing all of this stuff from the get-go. So we're going to right click and click New Layer Group, and we're going to name this layer group Cup. We're going to click New Layer and set that layer to, well, I guess that's not necessarily important. The important thing is to make sure your layer groups are named. And we're going to fill this layer with whatever color we want our actual cup to be. And I actually happen to have a color here already set for what I had used before, which was this HTML notation. So if you copy C8914A into here and hit tab, it'll actually change the color to the exact color I'm using. So just hit OK, fill that color in, and then now of course we don't want the whole background and everything colored that, we just want the shape of the cup colored that. So we're going to use a layer mask to do that. We're going to right click on our cup shape layer, or cup shape path, and click Path to Selection. Then go back over, right click on our layer, and click Add Layer Mask, and set the layer mask to Selection, and then click Add. Now hit Select None, and there we go. We now have our first layer set, defining the color of our actual cup. We're going to repeat that process with the grip and the lid. So right click, click New Layer, right click, click New Layer Group. We'll name this one Grip, and I'm going to move it up, and then add a new layer, hit OK. Fill it in with the grip color that I used, which was this number here, 9B562D, and then click OK. Fill that whole layer in with that color, right click, go over to your path, right click on the grip shape path and click Path to Selection. Right click on your layer mask, set Add Layer Mask, set it to Selection, and click Add. Now hit Select None. And then one more time, we're going to right click, click New Layer Group again, name this layer group Lid, and we also want this above both of these, above the cup layer at least. Right click, click New Layer, hit OK. Go over to your path, And this time it's going to be a little bit different. Well, it seems like it's going to be a little bit different, but actually you're going to take the whole outer shape, this whole shape right here, and make it a single color, and then we'll do the shading on everything else from there. So right click on the outer lid shape and click Path to Selection. Go back over, right click on this, click Add Layer Mask, set it to Selection, and click Add. Click Select None. And I did this one backwards, but the order doesn't matter. You can add the layer mask before you add the color. So now go over to your colors, and this time we use 8E654C, or you can use your own colors, whatever you want, and then just fill that whole layer with that color. Now zoom out, and if we hide our layers, if we hide our paths, you can see that we're starting to take shape of our cup. But we have quite a bit of shading to do before we actually have all this taken care of. So from there, we're going to start adding some of our shading and the details we need to make this really look nice. So from there, we are going to start working on the details of the lid. Let's start with the cup. Let's do the overall cup first, just because it's the easiest, relatively speaking. So for now, we're going to hide the grip and hide the lid and just look at nothing but our cup. Now we are going to start adding some shading by right clicking on this layer and click New Layer. Just leave it at transparency and click OK. So we now have our first layer above our cup layer, and we're going to use this layer for shading. So we're going to fill this layer with the color black. So hit the D key on your keyboard or click on this black and white to bring everything back to black and white, and fill the whole layer with the color black and set its layer mode to overlay. So now look, it makes all of that layer darker. But what's really cool is, since this is in a layer group, it's only going to affect what's inside of that group. So that's really handy, and it helps reduce on your layer masking a little bit. So let's right click on this and click Add Layer Mask and set it to Black Full Transparency and click Add. Now if we click on our gradient tool, our blend tool, we're going to pick a gradient to make it white. So we'll flip our colors over and set it to foreground to transparent, and then we're just going to drag over like this. And just like that, our cup gets some shading. This is obviously some very basic shading. There's going to be a lot more added on top of that, but that's a good starting point. Now we're going to, on the opposite side, we're going to add a highlight. So right click, click New Layer, hit OK, and this time we're going to fill the layer with the color white instead of black, and set its layer mode to overlay again. This time, notice that it makes the cup lighter. So, but again, we only want some of this to be lighter. We want it to kind of fade into the normal cup color and then fade into the darker color. So again, we're going to add another layer mask, set it to Black Full Transparency, and then click on our gradient tool, make sure we're on foreground to transparent and our color's white, and we're just going to click and drag another gradient over. And just like that, we now have a highlight and a low light. And what's great about this is, if we ever change the color of our cup, that highlight and that low light information stays there. Now we're going to add a little bit of texture to the cup to kind of make it look a little more interesting, because right now it looks perfectly smooth, and we don't like that. So we're going to right click and click New Layer and hit OK, and we'll fill this in with the color white, and again set it to the layer mode overlay. Now right click on our layer and click Add Layer Mask, and we're going to set it to Black Full Transparency again and click Add. Now here's where things get kind of interesting. We're going to kind of create this papery look, kind of like almost fiber, I don't know. But to make things easier, I'm going to show the layer mask so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to click Filters, Noise, RGB Noise, and just crank up this gray value to a high number and click OK. So now we have this random white, black, and gray pixels throughout our layer mask. If If I uncheck Show Layer Mask, you'll see now it kind of makes my cup look like it's got a bunch of bright and dark spots all over it. Which, it gives us a texture, but it's not necessarily a good texture. So now we're going to show our layer mask again so we can see what's going on. And click Filters, Blur, Motion Blur. And we're going to set it on an angle of 90. And then we're going to make the length about 15 long. Hit OK. And then we're going to click Colors, Levels. Well, not yet. Let's not do that yet. Let's click Filters. I think it's Distorts. Maybe it's Noise. Yeah, Noise, Slur. And we're just going to mess with these settings until we get some kind of messy look to kind of add some randomness to our image. And then hit OK. And that kind of adds this random texture to it. Now if I uncheck Show Layer Mask, you can now see we have some form of a texture. The problem is it's not really sticking out enough. So we're going to click Colors, Levels, and then adjust our levels to make it stick out quite a bit more. Just keep messing with this. And then hit OK. And then adjust the opacity down to something that works for you. There we go. So now we have a texture on our cup, and it helps make the cup look a little bit more real. Now we're going to start working on the grip. So let's turn our grip layer on and see how it looks. Now as you can see, whenever we created the grip path, we also had accidentally grabbed some parts that are actually hidden behind our cup, and we don't want that, so we got to get rid of that. So to do that, let's go to our layer mask for the grip, hit the paintbrush tool, and set our paint to the color black by hitting the D key on our keyboard, and then just brush away those details. And if you look right here, you'll notice that we got a little bit of white there, and we don't want that either. We want that to be brown, so switch to the color white and just kind of fill that in. I'm going to change over to a harder brush. I was using a soft brush there, and we don't want that. So just get rid of those details on each side. Like that. Okay, so now let's fix this a little more. Now if we zoom out, our grip looks much neater. So we're going to add some of the shading to this one using pretty much the same process that we did on the cup. Right click, add a new layer. We'll leave it to transparency, and then get our bucket fill tool out and fill it in with the color black. Set our layer mode to overlay, and then right click on the layer and click add layer mask, set it to black full transparency, and click add. And we're going to click on our blend tool, set it to foreground of transparent, switch over to the color white, and we're going to add that gradient in. Oops, I did it backwards. Just click and drag and release. And you'll notice I can create a straight line, and I'm doing that by holding in Control on the keyboard, so that's what makes it stay straight. And then just try it until you get something that you like. I recommend not going past the halfway point with this because it creates a result that you're not going to want later on with the highlight. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now we'll right click and click new layer and hit OK, and this time we're going to do the highlight on the opposite side. So fill it in with the color white just like before, set it to overlay, right click, add layer mask, black full transparency, click on our blend tool, and again make our gradient. Zoom out. There we go. And we will also add a texture to the grip as well, using pretty much the same process as what we used with the cup. So right click and click new layer, and click OK. Fill the layer with the color white and set its layer mode to overlay. Right click on it and click Add Layer Mask, Black Full Transparency, and click Add. Now click Filters, Noise, RGB Noise, and the same settings as before. Then click Filters, Blur, Motion Blur, same settings as before. And then last but not least, Filter, Noise, Slur, and then just hit OK again. And then decrease the opacity until you get something that you like. Colors, levels, let's change the contrast on this a bit too. And you know what? I actually don't think I want to add the slur so strong on this. I want it to look like a slightly different material. So let's actually undo the blur too. Let's do filters, blur, motion blur again. So I actually did undo. If I look at my layer mask, I did undo until all I have is my grain. And I'm now going to do my motion blur again. But this time I'm going to make the length a little longer and hit OK. And then I'm going to click colors, levels, and we're not even going to do slur this time. We're just going to do stripes. And hit OK. And then decrease the opacity way down. There we go. That looks pretty good. So now the cup and the grip look like they're two different materials, and kind of adds a little bit more character to it. Okay, so next up we're going to work on the lid. So let's turn our lid layer on and let's start with it. So the lid is going to be a little more complex, and there's also some details on the grip, like the top edge, that we'll need to add, and we're going to add a little bit more to the cup later too, I think. But the lid is really complex because it has really one front bevel here, and then the top ring. If you look at our paths, you can see what I'm talking about. There's really a lot going on. You've got the top bevel here, you've got this top ring here, then you've got the inside bevel, and then you've got this part down here, which I'm going to actually make look like it's bubbling up. So you've actually really got a lot going on this part, and it's going to take a little bit more, it's going to be a little tricky compared to what we've done so far. Everything else has been pretty straightforward. So first off, we need to get the lip. Let me turn on all my paths till I find the right one. There we go. So we're going to need the top lid ring and the outer lid shape, because between the two of them, they create this front area, which is going to have the gradient much like what the rest of our image has already gotten. So we're going to right click on our outer lid shape and click Path to Selection. And then we're going to right click on the top lid ring and click Subtract from Selection. So now all we have is that front bevel. And we will go ahead and make that a path, and we will call it the outer lid bevel. Okay, so let's go ahead and hide that and that, so all we see is the outer lid bevel path. And then we're going to right click and click New Layer, click OK, click on our bucket fill tool, and we're going to fill it with the color black and set its layer mode to overlay. Again, basically all we're doing right now is creating the slow fade to the darker color on this side. And then we're going to, so now that we have our layer set with our layer mode to overlay, you'll notice that unlike the other situations, this time it made the whole lid darker. We don't want to make the whole lid darker. We just want to make this part right here darker. So we need to first right click on our bevel and click Path to Selection. So now that front part of the lid is perfectly selected. Right click on our layer and click Add Layer Mask, and this time we'll set it to Selection instead, and then click Add. Then hit Select None, and you'll notice what happened is it made the entire bevel dark. which is good. That's close, but it's not quite what we want. We actually want to get rid of the dark from here all the way over to about here. So we're going to click on our gradient tool, and again, before what we were doing was we were adding the dark. This time we're removing the dark. So instead of filling in our gradient with white from here over, we're going to fill in our gradient with black from here over. So we want the last point of our gradient to end right about here, and we want it to fade all the way over here. Maybe a little less than that. Something like that, maybe. Just keep trying until you find something that you like. There we go. That's pretty good. And then we can adjust the opacity down a little bit to make the effect not quite so strong. There we go. So that's how we do the dark. Now to do the light, we just need to repeat that process. Right click, click new layer, hit OK, bucket fill tool, switch over to white, fill it in with white, set the layer mode to overlay, right click on our outer lid bevel and click path to selection, right click on our layer and click add layer mask, set it to selection, click add. So now we have the entire area light. And again, we'll click on our blend tool, switch over to the color black by hitting the X key on the keyboard, and then create a gradient like that. And again, you can decrease the opacity if you think the effect is too strong. Zoom out. Okay, so now our lid is already starting to take shape. Just from those two gradients, it made quite a difference. So now let's work on creating the inner bevel the same way that we created the outer. Alright, so to do the inner bevel, I think we already actually created that. Yes, we created that path earlier. This is it right here. Now the thing that's interesting about this is the gradient for the dark to the light is going to be opposite, because we're basically saying that the light is coming from over in this direction somewhere and it's coming over this way. So if it's hitting this way, this side of the cup is lighter on this side, but it's darker on this side. Now with the bevel, it's just the opposite. It's going to be darker over here because the lid's covering it up, and it's going to be lighter over here because the light's still able to hit it. So we need to keep that in mind and make our gradients accordingly. So this time we're going to right click and click new layer, hit OK, and first we'll do our dark side. So we'll create a new layer, set the layer mode to overlay, and then add a layer. Well, before we add our layer mask, we have to first select the bevel, just like what we did before. So right click on our path and click path to selection, then go over to our layer, hit add layer mask, set it to selection, and click add. Okay, so now that bevel on the inside is selected, but of course we don't necessarily want all of it to be dark like that, so we need to click on our gradient tool, set it to the color black, start here, holding control, click and drag over, and there we go. Maybe make it go a little slower. There we go. Okay, so now we have the bevel that's fading away in that color, and we just need to make it so that it gets lighter on this side. So right click, click on new layer, hit OK, switch over to the color white, click on the bucket fill tool, fill it in with white, set it to overlay, right click, I'm sorry, first you got to select your path again, so right click on your path, path to selection, right click on your layer, click add layer mask, set it to selection, click add. Now we're going to click on our blend tool again, switch back over to the color black, and make our gradient from there over. Now if we deselect and then zoom out, you can see that we have a very nice looking inner bevel. So just like that, our cup is really starting to take shape just from 4 layers with some shading. Now let's work on the center, and we're going to, like I said earlier, I want to kind of make it look like it's kind of bubbling up almost. So we're going to right click and we're going to create a highlight. So we're going to add a new layer, hit OK, fill the layer with white again, set it to overlay, and this time we need our bottom, well, not our bottom inner lid ring, we actually created a inner lid shape. Here we go, inner lid bottom shape right here, and this follows right along that path of where we can see. So we're going to right click on that and click path to selection, go back over to our layer, add a layer mask by selection and click add, and then click on our gradient tool, and this time we're going to set our gradient to radial, and we're going to switch over to the color black, and we're going to click right about here and drag a radial gradient out. Oh yes, but this time you actually have to make it foreground to background instead of the transparent one. So click and drag out. Well, actually, maybe not. You have to leave your selection on, so we have to reselect our path. So path to selection, and then click and drag to make your gradient. Oh, I was doing it backwards, that's why. Sorry guys, forget everything I just said. Let's undo, let's just start over. Alright, so right click on our path, click path to selection, right click and click add layer mask, set it to selection and click add. Leave your gradient on foreground to transparent. Draw in your gradient, and this time you're going to see that it made a dark spot. We actually want it to be a light spot, so we're just going to click colors, invert, and that'll invert the colors on our layer mask, and then hit select, none, and whenever we zoom out you'll notice that it created that nice gradient just like we wanted. And we can turn that down or up a little bit as we see fit. Okay, so that pretty well creates the shape of the cup. Let's start working on the lid, the lip on the grip. So go ahead and zoom in on the lip, and you can minimize your lid group now, and we'll maximize the grip group. So now we just need to pretty much do the same thing we did with the bevel at the top on the grip. So to do that, we first need to select the upper lip of our grip. Man, that's a tongue twister. Okay, so we have our grip shape, and we have the top grip ring, and together they create, actually honestly all you really need is the inner top grip ring and the top grip ring. Combined together they create that lip. So what we're going to do is we will right click on the top grip ring and click path to selection, right click on the top inner grip ring and click subtract from selection, and then convert that over to a path and name that path top grip ring lip. Whoops. There we go. And we'll leave it on for reference. So right click and click new layer, hit OK, zoom out a little bit, and we'll just fill our layer with the color black because we're going to do the dark first. I'm going to turn off my lid so it's out of the way. Set its layer mode to overlay, then right click on the layer and click, well, before we add our layer mask we have to make sure we make our selection. So right click on the lip, click path to selection, we can hide it for now, and go back over, right click on our layer and click add layer mask, set it to selection and click add. Now if we hit select none, you'll notice that we now have a nice dark area over here. And this time we may not need to add a gradient, but I think we're going to do it anyway. So let's go ahead, click on our gradient, go foreground to transparent in the color black, click and drag over, and just kind of soften up some of the area around in there, and then hit select none, and there we go. But we don't want it dark on this side, we just want it dark on this side. So we're going to get our paintbrush tool out and set the color black, and then just kind of brush away that stuff. And we'll do a light layer on that side in a minute. So to add the highlight on the opposite side, we just need to follow the same steps. Right click, click new layer, click OK, fill it in with the color white, set the layer mode to overlay, And then go back over to our path, right click on it and click Path to Selection. Go back to our layer and add a layer mask, set it to Selection and click Add. Then hit the Gradient tool. Make sure your gradient is black to white or black to transparent and add your gradient. Oh, make sure you're on linear, not radial. I was wondering why it was acting weird. There we go. Now hit Select None, Paintbrush tool, and get rid of that just in case. And I'm going to show the layer mask for a second so you can see what's going on here. Notice that if I uncheck Show, you can't really see it, but if I set my layer to normal, you can. And there's a little highlight here, and we don't want that. We got to get rid of that. So I'm going to turn my layer back to normal so I can clearly see what's going on, and I'm just going to brush that away. And I'll probably need to repeat this step on the opposite side as well. So set it back to the layer mode overlay, then go to the darker side, set it to normal. Yeah, see? So we just need to get rid of that. There we go. And then you can set that back to overlay. And then I can probably adjust the opacity if it needs it and zoom out. There we go. We turn our lid back on. This is really starting to look like a coffee cup. So I think that we should change the background at this point because it will make this look quite a bit better. So what I did with the background earlier was I actually filled my background layer with a gray color, and it was actually this color right here, which is 767676. Click OK. Click on the bucket fill tool, and I'm just going to fill that entire layer in with that color. And then I right clicked and I clicked New Layer, hit OK, and I simply added a white radial gradient like that, and then I click edit, click on the scale tool, and I just kind of flatten it a little bit. Let's hide it so we can see what's going on. Oh, I'm scaling a path. Make sure that you're set back to layer. Click scale, and just kind of flatten it a little bit, and then hit scale. Turn your layer back on. You can set it to overlay if you want, and then just kind of turn the opacity down to something that works for you. And then right click on it and click merge down. There we go. So now that we have a slightly better looking background, we can work from there. What we want to do next is create some better details on the cup. So we're going to create a new layer and hit OK. Fill it with the color black. Set the layer mode to overlay. Right click, add a layer mask, set it to black full transparency and click add. Click on our gradient and set it to the color white. And just kind of add a splash of dark kind of down here at the bottom a little bit, maybe a little bit at the top, and turn the opacity on this quite a ways down. We're just trying to create some interest in the cup. If you look at it like that versus like that, I think that looks a little bit nicer. And we also need to create some shadows underneath both the lid and the bottom of the grip. To create those, we're going to right click in our cup layer group and click New Layer, hit OK, click on the bucket fill tool, fill it in with the color black, and then we're going to actually reuse we're going to do the lid first. So let's right click on the outer lid shape and click Path to Selection. Go back over to our layer and click Add Layer Mask and set it by selection and click Add. Now click Select None, and then click on the layer mask and your Move tool. Make sure you're moving the layer, and we're going to move it. Whoops, wrong layer. Make sure you're moving the right layer. Click Move the active layer. There we go. And Just holding Control and kind of move this down a little bit. There we go. And then hit Filters, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and just kind of blur underneath. There we go. And we just need to get rid of the part that goes over the edge of our cup. Since this isn't on a layer mode, it will go over and override other layers underneath of it, other layer groups underneath of it. Like for example, if I change this to overlay, you'll notice it trims up perfectly. But since the layer mode's normal, it doesn't do that. So we actually have to tell it where the edge is, which is pretty simple. You just gotta hold in Shift or Alt and click on the cup shape, and that will turn it into a selection. And then click Select, Invert, zoom out, click on the bucket fill tool, and fill that area with the color black. Make sure you're set to fill whole selection though. There we go. Now hit Select None. And then we can probably turn the opacity down on that a little bit, just so it's not quite so strong. Good. Now let's just repeat the process underneath the actual grip. But you know, honestly, I think that's a little bit too big. So let's go back a little bit, and let's undo before we actually remove that selection, and let's move it up a little more, like that. Maybe right there. Now go back over and click Path to Selection. Click Select Invert, and again, bucket fill tool on the layer mask, color black, fill it in. Select None. Zoom out. That looks much better. Then remove the opacity a little bit. There we go. So we're going to repeat that process on the grip. So to do this, we're just going to do the same process. Right click, click New Layer, and click. You can also, instead of hitting transparency and filling it in with the bucket fill tool every time, if your colors are set to black and white pretty much the whole time in this part. So right now my foreground color is black. So if I click foreground color and click OK, it'll automatically fill it in with the color black. It saves a step, and sometimes it's pretty good to do. It's just sometimes difficult to remember that you can do it. So now we just need to select our grip shape, and another shortcut key is whatever path you have active. If you hold in Shift and press V, that will also select whatever path is active. So to create a selection from a path, you have several options. One, you can right click on it and click Path to Selection. Two, you can hold in Alt and click on the path that you want to select. Or three, if the path is active, you can hold in Shift and click V, and that will create the selection. So now let's right click and click Add Layer Mask, set it to Selection and click Add. Click Select None, and then click on the Move tool. Make sure you're moving the active layer. Click on your layer mask, click and drag down just a little bit to start creating that shadow. Now click Filters, repeat Gaussian Blur. We'll just use the same settings we had last time. And there we go. Now the problem is again, you have that same problem where the shadow is going on the outside of the cup. So to fix that, we're going to have to, first off, hit Shift V because our grip shape is already selected. Then hit Select Invert. And this time, we actually want to, let's undo the invert selection. And then click on the cup shape and add it. So right click on it and click Add to Selection. So now you have the complete outline of both of them. Now click Select Invert. And then click on the bucket fill tool and fill your layer mask in with the color black. There we go. That trims it up nice. Okay, so as you can see, our cup is almost finished. The only problem is we have this black that actually went on top of our layer 2. If you hide this, you'll notice that shadow there, and we don't really want that. So to get rid of it, we'll just click on the layer mask, click on our paintbrush tool, make sure we're coloring black, and just Make it nice and big and just brush that away. There we go. Cool. Now we're going to start making some of these edges not look so sharp. Like the edge on the top of the lid, for example, it looks very, very, very sharp. And we don't really want that. We kind of want it to look like it's kind of a rounded edge, a fillet, if you will. So to do that, what we're going to do is add a new layer. So right click and click new layer. And this time we're going to set it to the background color, which is white, and hit OK. That'll fill it in with the color white. Set the layer mode to overlay. And we just want our layer mask to be on this small edge right here. So to do that, we're going to right click and click add layer mask and just set it to black full transparency for now. And then go over to our paths and find the top lid ring and right click on it, and we're going to click stroke path. We're going to leave it at the default of 6 pixels and hit stroke. And what this is going to do is it's going to draw a line along the path equal to whatever color our current layer, our foreground color was, which in this case was black. So since our layer mask was already black, stroking the path didn't do anything. So make sure your color is white, not black. Right click on it and click stroke path, and then just click stroke again, and there you go. Now you see it created this white along the edge of the cup, which is good, but we don't want it to go all the way around. We just kind of want it to hit on the front portion. So we're going to hit our paintbrush tool, and we're just going to get rid of some of this by coloring in black along this back edge. There we go, something like that. And then click filters, blur, Gaussian blur, and we're going to turn it down to a pretty small amount, probably like 4 or 5 maybe, and hit OK. And zoom out. Maybe even a little less than that. Let's show our Gaussian blur, maybe 3. There we go, that looks nice. And then we can, at this point, find our 2 color layers that make the lid darker and lighter on each side, and just make them a little less visible, because we don't really need that as much as we did before, because this lip up here really helps add to that. And something else I would like to do is I want to make this lid look more shapely. I kind of want to give it a curve, almost like it's flaring out, not so much as a straight flat. So to do that, we're going to actually just go to our shape layer mask and just kind of add that curve manually. Just keep trying until you find something you like. That looks pretty good. And then zoom in and repeat that process on this side. I feel like I trimmed too much off, maybe just a little bit less. There we go. Okay. Try to keep it symmetric. Maybe switch back over and add a little bit more. Just kind of massage that curve in until they look nice on both sides. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now we just need to add a new layer to create the nice gradient so it looks like it's getting a little lighter to a little darker. So click new layer, click OK. Fill it in with the color black, because whenever you click new layer, make sure that you click foreground color this time, or background color, whatever color your black's on. Hit OK. Set the layer mode to overlay. Right click, click add layer mask, and before you do that, make sure that you have your the outer lid shape, the ring, the outer lid bevel, that's what we called it, selected. So alt click on that, go over to your gradient, hide your path, and then go back over to your layers, oops, and add a layer mask, black full transparency, hit add, click on your gradient, and just kind of add that gradient in there. Turn its opacity way down because it really doesn't need to be a huge difference. And here's a before and an after. See, I don't really like that. So let's undo before we did the gradient. And try again. Maybe we'd be better off just clicking on the paintbrush tool with a nice big soft brush and just kind of roughing it in on our own. That looks pretty good. So now let's turn the opacity way down on it and zoom out. Okay, so now we're going to add a nice soft lip on this, on the bottom edge of that, and as well as the rest of our grips. Okay, so to add those white areas that'll soften up these corners, we just need to repeat the process that we did for this first one. So let's start with the lid. We're going to right click and click new layer, set it to our foreground color and click OK. Go over to our bottom lid ring, add a layer mask and set it to black full transparency, and then hit Shift V, or I'm sorry, no, we're not selecting, we're going to actually create a stroke. So right click, click stroke path, and then click stroke. Set your layer mode to overlay and modify it from there. So click on your paintbrush tool, set it to black, and brush away the unwanted parts of the stroke that we created. There we go. Zoom out, crank that opacity down just a little bit. Nice. And that actually might look better black instead of white. So maybe we click on our layer and click Colors, Invert. No, it looks better white. We'll leave it white. And then let's just repeat that process on the grip down here. Right click and click New Layer. Set it to background color. Click OK. Set the layer mode to overlay. Add a layer mask, full transparency. Find the top grip ring. There it is. Stroke that path. Hit stroke. Make sure you stroke in the color white. There we go. And go back over here. We can leave that on there. There we go. And I'm actually going to turn my layer back to normal so I can see more clearly what's going on. And if you want, you could even select your cup shape to create a nice hard line for you to work with. So you don't have to worry about going over the edge by accident. I recommend using a hard brush for here too. I keep on having a soft brush selected and they just don't do a very good job for this. There we go. Now select none. Turn your layer back to overlay. Hit filters, blur, Gaussian blur, or you can just repeat it and then adjust the opacity down till it looks nice. And actually, I don't think we blurred this one. Let's do that now. There we go, that looks nice. Now the thing is you see that hard line for the shadow there? That kind of gets rid of the effect that we're trying to create with it being soft. So we need to work on this shadow. So maybe if we just turn its visibility down quite a bit, that'll probably help quite a lot. There we go. That looks pretty good. And the same thing with the light side. Just need to turn its opacity down some more. There we go. Now for the bottom ring, this one's probably going to be a darker color. So let's try new layer, foreground color, OK. Set the layer mode to overlay. Add a layer mask, set it to black, click OK. Then click on the bottom grip ring, stroke that path, click stroke, switch over to the color white, or I'm sorry, switch over to the color black, get rid of this extra information here, click filters, Gaussian blur, and there we go. That looks pretty good. So now we're going to add the bottom ring, a ring on the bottom of the cup, just something to kind of make it look like it's, I don't know, a little darker, I guess. Maybe define that edge a bit better. So let's go back to our cup group, add a new layer, set it to the foreground color, which is black right now, hit OK. Set the layer mode to overlay. Add a layer mask, set it to black full transparency, and then click on the bottom cup ring and click stroke path. Click stroke. Again, stroke path, make sure it's white, not black. There we go. And switch over to the color white to get rid of the unwanted parts. Zoom out, click filters, repeat Gaussian blur, and adjust the opacity as needed. In fact, maybe our stroke should be a little bigger for this one. Let's try that. Let's click stroke path. Let's make it 12 pixels. And the color white. There we go. Paintbrush black. Get rid of this unwanted information. There we go. Nice. Now click filters, reshow Gaussian blur, and we'll make it blur at 6. That looks pretty good. And then turn the opacity down quite a bit. There we go. So the cup is pretty well done now. The only thing we need to add is the hole at the top so you can actually drink out of it. So let's go ahead and do that next. But before we do that, let's add a shadow underneath our cup. I know it's not technically realistic, but it does look nice. So let's add a new layer, set it to black, add a layer mask, set it to black full transparency, and then click on the bottom cup ring, hit Shift V, fill it in with the color white, and then if you hide your cup, you'll see you now have a black circle underneath of your cup. And we're just going to click filters, reshow Gaussian blur, and we're going to just blur it a lot. Hit OK. There we go. Just like that, we have a nice subtle shadow underneath of our cup. Okay, so now let's get started on actually adding the part that you actually drink the coffee from. So to add that, I'm actually going to click on the paths tool and create the shape that I want manually. So just click and drag. We're going to start actually creating a path. It's kind of funny that we've been using paths this whole time, and this is the first time in this entire lesson that we've actually been making one manually. You'll notice I'm just kind of trying to get as close as I can to what I think the path would probably look like. There we go. I'll zoom out and see how that looks. Let's move that path to the top. And let's rename it, I don't know, I guess lid hole. There we go. So I think it looks a little too tall. It probably shouldn't be quite that tall. So let's click on our paths tool and edit the nodes until it gets to be right. So we're just going to kind of drag and move these things around until we get what we want. Oops. This one should probably actually be tangent like that. There we go. That's nice. And it looks kind of strange here. It's almost like these are too long. Maybe if I shorten. So just keep tweaking it until you get what you like, and then go from there. That looks good, but I don't think it's quite in the right spot. So let's move it. Let's move it up and out just a little bit, and now let's maybe rotate it. No, that looks pretty good. I like that. So now let's go to our lid layer group and right click, add a new layer, set it to our background color, which is black right now, and hit OK. Add a layer mask. Well, before we add a layer mask, hit Shift V, because remember, our active path was the hole for the lid. So hitting Shift V turns it into a selection. Now add a layer mask, set it to selection and click Add. Click Select None, and hide the path, and there we go. Now the only thing, it would be nice to have some kind of slightly brighter area right here to kind of represent the small ledge underneath. So to do that, we're just going to duplicate this layer, and well, yeah, let's duplicate the layer, set it to the layer mode overlay, and then turn the opacity down on the underneath one so we can kind of see what we're doing. Click on the paintbrush tool, and we're just going to set it to black, paint away some of that. There we go. So now we just have a little bit of the edge selected, and then click on your actual layer and click Colors, Invert. That'll make it white. Go back down to your normal layer, turn it up all the way, well, some of the way, and then just remove from that layer some of the black. Turn it up all the way, zoom out. There we go. That looks pretty good, but actually I was wrong. It should be black. So click Colors, Invert again, and zoom in and tweak it. So I'm going to color back in the color black on my layer mask. I'm sorry, the color white to re-add the rest of that lip there. We zoom out. It looks alright, but I don't know if it should be quite that intrusive. There we go. That's better. I just adjust the opacity back and that helps. Okay, so there you go. I hope that helps. If you guys have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to ask. And thanks for being a member of Gimp's Premium.